Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of Enough. We're so glad that you guys are all here, and we are even more glad that we have another guest on the show. So today we are joined by Father Tom Tsagalakis, who is currently serving at Holy Apostles Greek Orthodox Church in Shoreline, Washington. He was a former adjunct professor at Seattle Pacific University, and he maintains a private practice in marriage and family therapy in Seattle. Alongside all of that, Father Tom has received 2 master's degrees, acquiring a master's in divinity from Holy Cross School of Theology in Brookline, Massachusetts, as well as a master's in marriage and family counseling from Seattle Pacific University. Father Tom also serves as one of the team members of the Family Wellness Ministry, which is run out of the metropolis of San Francisco. It is a beautiful ministry seeking to provide families with the opportunities to mend broken relationships and grow deeper with one another. So, Father, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for all the introduction. I should be a smart guy on the show, those degrees. So thank you for the introduction. Yeah, it's great to be here.
So today, to kind of set the stage, we're wanting to talk about mental health and kind of how that goes in relationship with the church. Because in today's age, we're, surrounded by such a great blessing of, a drive to seek mental health and seek counseling and seek therapy. But oftentimes, in my opinion and Stav opinions and our team, we feel that there's not really a response from the church. So I guess to set the stage in more of a broader sense, psychology and counseling, that's all very much a science. So it is we think it's important to maybe understand the church's stance on science for the viewers. So, Father, what as Orthodox do we say, when we're looking at science? Is that something we should be for? Is it something we should be against? Or is there a balance to kind of strike with that?
Here's the deal. As I grow older, I'm almost 65, and I've been a therapist for 30 years and a dad for 31 years. So what I love about our church is that everything at the core of our church is trying to deal with reality, with the real story of who the human person is, the real story of who the church is, the real story of who Jesus is. So for me, science just adds to the real story. So if we deny science, it's like we're denying God, right? Science is science, it's truth. So, I mean, what's the science that we know of? But, it's not an exact science. If we had mental illness, it's such a hard thing, and not one mode of therapy, not one idea really fits all and is helpful for everyone. So for me, science is a beautiful thing. It's a tool that helps open doors, that can help open doors to the soul. Because, for me, basically, I think psychology, we deal with people's trauma, where they disconnect from themselves and they get into trouble because of the decisions they make in life based on some of the simple trauma and complex trauma they experience. So science is so important, especially now the brain science that they're finding about the brain. It's so stinking in line with the fathers of the church. It's just unbelievable how the thoughts. There's an elder of the church, Elder Thaddeus. He wrote a book, Our Thoughts Determine Our Life, and they're finding out that our thoughts really influence us and really define us. So the church has, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people would agree with me, but that's my opinion, that science is so important because it helps navigate us to help unpack the challenges or the blocks that we have as human beings that keep us from ourselves and keep us from God. Yeah.
I really like all that. And so, do you think with the science and being a psychologist and being a therapist and all that, do you think that the church is then kind of overlooked with seeking for help? Because
I do, because I think you have really well-intentioned priests like me, and I'm even as a therapist, I'm limited. So I did an informal research when I asked people when they're in trouble, who do they go to? And a high number of people don't go to the priest. They go to mental health folks, and which for me, thank God, they're going to help at a safe place when things are really tough. And hopefully, if the priest is open to walking alongside the parishioner, whoever is struggling. When I taught at university, I was there at Seattle Pacific University for 10 years as adjunct professor, and I said, you guys, there's no part of this program, this curriculum that talks about love.
Mm-hmm.
What's up with that? I mean, that's at the core of all the things we get in trouble for.
Yeah.
Someone said, all you need is love. And people laugh at that, but the love of Christ, when you really look at love, really, when we unpack love, it's the desire to be in connection with one another, and that gets really messed up over time with
Hmm.
yeah.
So like, would you say there's a point that people can reach where they've gone to, too much counseling, too much psychology and therapy, and then rather than going to the church or rather than going to a priest?
Well, really, my thing is rather than going to Jesus, I think when we go to Christ, then things open up. And I think, there's a lot of pop psychologists. When I was a kid, it was Leo Buscaglia. He was called the Love Doctor. He was a psychologist at USC. And now this big name is Brene Brown. She talks a lot about shame. And she's done research out of the University of Houston, which powerful stuff that is in line with the church. So what I think we as a body, as a church, needs to realize what the church has already been saying. Some of these people are unpacking in a way that makes sense to me. And if
Hmm.
I preach, if I teach, and it doesn't make sense to you, Stavros, or Nico, you think, Father Tom, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But if I can connect it with, the parables of Jesus, he talked in their people's time. So if we can connect with what, Brene Brown is talking about shame, she talks a lot. I don't know if you know who she is. She's a really big time psychologist and travels around the world. Millions and millions of people have read her books. And, she talks about how at the core, the difference between shame and guilt, guilt is when we've done something wrong and we can say, I'm sorry, and we get over it. Shame is when we really feel like inherently we're unworthy, we're not good enough, and we manifest that in life.
Hmm.
And as Christians, as Orthodox Christians, there's a balance of knowing that we're unworthy, but we belong to God. God is our Father. We're His beloved kids, and He doesn't make unworthy people. He
Yeah.
makes beautiful people. Yeah.
And I think people kind of get lost in that idea where they're like, okay, I'm not worthy, so I can't go to church or something. I can't seek
Yeah.
out help. But like everyone's like that. So
But again, the unworthy part, I think we get really messed up with that. We're all invited to come to the table, and I think
mhm.
I'd rather have people think about you're not going to church, you're going to worship the God that gives you the breath that you breathe and the golf course that you golf on. You know,
Right, right. Yeah, that's super interesting because I think, like you said, we're not necessarily just going to church to pray, but we're going there to be in the presence of God. And I think a lot of people overlook that in the sacrament of confession because, they're always like, oh, well, I don't want to go expose myself to the priest, but, it's interesting to look at that and then also look at like therapy and counseling. I took a counseling theories class this past semester. And to me, and this may just have been my Orthodox mind, but like all of the theories we talked about seemed like it was just confession without the idea of God. So where does confession come into the play in all of this when we're, whether we think we need to go see a counselor or we want help from the church, like where does this all come into play?
right? I think it's so important. I think a lot of times we feel like we've confessed, we got our stuff out, but again, we forget that God is in the center of everything we do. We go to God because He's the one that's going to forgive us. The story of the guy who is the paralytic. Uh, the friends take him to Jesus. There's not enough room. They lower him down from the roof, and the first thing he says, your sins are forgiven, and they get all ticked off, like, who are you to forgive sins? Only God can do that, right? And people get freaked out, like, you know, I don't want his sins forgiven. I want him to get up and walk.
Mhm.
And the thing is, for our church, she wants you to be able to walk and heal physically, but we've forgotten the soul, man. We've neglected the soul, and we take care of our bodies. We go to yoga. We eat right. We exercise right, and we've forgotten that God has breathed spirit into us. And for me, that's the beauty of science and therapy, and really for confession to come back into the life of the church and the river and the running, loving rivers of the water of the church. Yeah.
Oh, Nick, do you have something to say?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So, with that idea of confession and kind of opening yourself up, not just to a priest, but also to the church and to Christ, do you think it's really important to find like one specific spiritual father, or does it not really matter?
I think it doesn't matter who to go to confession to, but I really think you need someone to help come alongside you in your spiritual walk, because it's easy to neglect it. It's easy to do whatever you want. I was
Hmm.
just talking to somebody, an older woman who, she went through a divorce and now she's dating this guy and she's thinking, well, I think I want to have sex. She goes, what's wrong with sex? So she's asking me. She knows I'm a priest. she's And I go, well, what do you mean? And said, well, to make a long story short, she said, well, at the end of the day, I know God loves me, and if I have sex and it's a sin, then it's okay. So it's how do we get out of our head and respond from our heart, so we can say, well, what is really sexuality, and what do I do with my body? And the world is going to tell you, do whatever you want, man.
Mhm.
We live in the world of whatever you want, instead of really aligning ourselves with the will of God. And that's hard. And it's
Mhm.
beautiful, though. And that's what I love about our church. I think who said it? Saint Irenaeus said, a person fully alive is God's glory. And Saint Isaac the Syrian said, to truly know oneself is a greater mystery than raising the dead. So what he's saying is that you, Stavros, I don't know if you ever woke up in the day, in the morning, or whoever's watching this, and realized you're God's beloved child, and within you is this divine energy that's covered up. And that's what the church wants. And you can't do that with psychology.
Mhm.
Psychology, you'll get clear things with your head, but and what the church is saying, I want you to get out of your head and into your heart. And there you'll find the world of peace,
Yeah.
joy, and Christ.
Yeah,
So I
it's
don't know
great.
what you guys want, but whoever's listening, I want you to want that more than anything in your life, because you're going to be seduced into thinking, well, I feel good. I'm doing my yoga. I'm doing my thing. How are you following Christ? Well, I love Jesus. I love God. And I never see you at worship. So what are you really telling me? I don't want to judge you, but what are you really saying?
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that's really kind of the main essence of why we wanted to, bring you on, and having that kind of therapy background, and kind of talk about this, because kind of how I talked about this right at the beginning, but right now in the world, especially like going through school, I always felt very not like pressured, because I think, being told to seek help is a very good thing, but I never felt that I was being told to seek the right help, because like you're saying, we have to like ignite our heart with Christ, but you can't do that when you're going to someone that's, not necessarily able to talk about Christ with you, right? And in therapy like that.
Yeah.
I guess to, put a
You
question in.
can go to therapy, you guys. You can go to therapy and in a beautiful way discuss the trauma, right? The things that really influence you, that kind of follow you throughout life, that really trip you up and make you fall. So it's good to understand that, but it's really so important to know that our work in this life is to become in communion and connection with God.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And who's telling you or me that?
Right.
That's the ultimate goal of being a human being. And then all the other things will come: family and golfing and fun and activities and bucket lists. But I've never heard anyone say, or very few people say, oh, I want my bucket list to be so connected with God that I'm a walking peacemaker. Whoever I see, they're going to see my peace, and they're going to be ignited because they're going to see the fire in me. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine you
Yeah.
wanting that at this age? Oh my gosh. Forget it.
It's funny you say that, because Sav and I, we were planning other episodes in our heads, and we were talking about saints and how we're told that we should become saints, but it's almost that we're not being encouraged in the church to become saints, but rather just to become orthodox, but to cover the
Oh,
bases. But we need to be encouraged to become saints.
absolutely, man. I love it. And I just want to have a whole talk on that. What does that mean to have the mind of Christ? And if we really believe that God breathed spirit into you in Genesis chapter 2, holy smolies. I mean, the implications freak me out.
Yeah.
It freaks me out, honestly.
It should. I think it should though. I like I
In a beautiful way, though.
Yeah, in a good way. In a good
Like, I
way.
want to chase after that.
In
And
a
you
good
know
way.
what it is? God's chasing after you and me. But can you
Yeah.
imagine us wanting that and supporting each other? Because it's there, it's covered up. Henry Nouwen said a really beautiful thing. He says, we're all created as masterpieces, and he doesn't create trash. And he said, the problem in life, check this out. This is my go-to reality check. He said, the problem in life is well-intentioned people, not well-intentioned people, come on the canvas with their paintbrush, and they start deciding on Nico, I think you should have this color and that color. And Stavros, you should have this and that. And you should be that person. You're not enough of that. Or you're crying too much. You're laughing too much. Or you want to have fun too much. And then if you're sexually, physically, emotionally abused, you know what happens? It's like a 5-gallon bucket of paint. Boom, right on your canvas. So you know what happens? He says you walk around, and around 14 to 21, you look in the mirror, and what do? He says, oh, shoot, man. Who in the hell are you? Oh, my gosh. And then you know what you do? He says what you do is the same thing well-intentioned people and not well-intentioned people do. You start painting over who you think you need to be, rather than scraping all that crap off. The imposition or the definitions of what people defined you as, so you can discover the true godlike nature that we all are inheritors of and participants of, if we desire to do that.
Wow, that's
Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling. I'm sorry.
That was beautiful.
You know.
But that was really beautiful analogy. And I guess just kind of to wrap all of this up, how do we, as young adults and whoever else listening, how do we start to pick off that excess paint that has covered our true selves? Like, where would you direct us to if you really had to, if someone was asking you?
I don't know. You need to find a safe place to cut the BS.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're running away. I was counseling a high executive guy, and just all the money. Anyway, so I asked him a question. He's living in anxiety. Like, and probably a lot of people in your age are filled with anxiety. I'm seeing more people 10, 11, 12 years old with anxiety. I didn't even know what anxiety was. They're just building ditches, digging holes in the backyard, man. Thinking anxiety, dude. And anxiety is fueled by fear. We should have another conversation about anxiety, because this is the number one killer. I'm telling you, it's the number one killer. And so I asked him a question. I said, well, we'll call him George. George, when's the last time you felt peace? He goes like this. And then all of a sudden he starts bawling. A 55-year-old world-renowned guy bawling. And all I asked is, when have you felt peace? 5 words. It's like when God asked Adam, where are you? Scared the crap out of Adam.
Yeah.
Right? Where are you? Oh my gosh, where am I? Whoa, man. Whoa, okay, there's only one truth. Let's get to the truth. So I think what I can recommend is the beauty of knowing oneself, and the beauty of truth, and the beauty of knowing that God loves us so much, and we're so far away, and we're so distracted, and we're so consumed with things, that how do we slow down? I'll leave you with this. I know I've gone on too long, but we think we're so cool as Americans, or as humans. We're going to the moon, and now we're taking pictures of Mars, and now Jeff Bezos next couple months is going to go on a spaceship and go to the moon. You're going to spend $500,000, $1 million to go to the moon, and we're so interested in going to outer space. Boom, boom. And the church tells us this. So what I can tell you both, and the friends that you have, and whoever is the 1, 2, 10, 100 people, whoever's watching this, the greatest exploration you can do, and this is what our church invites, and this is why people don't like our church, because it's hard. It's easy to look outside. It's easy to say, look at me, I built a church, or look at me, I built a spaceship, or look at me, I'm going on the moon. You guys, we got to talk about the 30 centimeter descent. You know what how far 30 centimeters is? It's infinity. Infinity is the inward space of your heart. To have that space exploration is our church. That exploration is love. That exploration, it just makes you full of energy in God's grace. So may we be really seeking to be space explorers, inner space, and not be like the Americans or Russians who want to be cosmonauts and go outside. We're all about this incredible infinity on the inside. And whew, man, when we start tasting that, who wants any other kind of drink, man? So anyway, thanks for having me. And, sorry if I went too long, but.
No worries, Father. Thank you for joining us. And I'm sure those watching have gotten a lot out of it. I know I have, just sitting here. And for those viewing, make sure to like the video, comment, and then go follow us on Instagram at Orthodoxy Daily. But once again, Father, thank you for being here.
Thank you. You guys are good, man. You should keep it up.
Thank you. All right, everybody. We'll see you all.
God bless you.